Hello, friends. If you love massive strategy games where hundreds of players are fighting over territory, building alliances, managing armies, and trying to outthink each other over days or even weeks, then this list is for you. The best MMORTS games are not just about building faster or having bigger armies. They are about long term planning, diplomacy, pressure, timing, and knowing when to fight, when to expand, and when to trust absolutely nobody. Today, we're showcasing our pick of the 10 best MMORTS games and what makes them worth playing. Let's get into it. Starting off at number 10, we have Anvil Empires, and this one is not fully released yet, but it already deserves a spot because of just how cool it is. It comes from the team behind Foxhole, and they're bringing a true MMO-scale war game with medieval logistics, huge sieges, and a heavy focus on teamwork. What makes Anvil Empires stand out is that it is not just about combat, it is about the full war machine. Gathering resources, moving supplies, building fortifications, preparing sieges, setting up battle lines, and working as part of something much bigger than your own character. That is what makes it feel so interesting. In a lot of strategy games, the battle is the main event. Here, the battle only works if the entire chain behind it is working too. If your faction cannot keep food, weapons, wood, and materials moving, everything falls apart. I participated in the stress test, and it was hilarious because of the proximity voice chat feature and a random guy that was the self-elected leader yelling orders in a Scottish accent. This one's on my wish list, and I believe it's worth a try. At number 9, we have Supremacy 1914. This is one of those games that really leans into slow burn grand strategy. You pick a nation during the First World War, build your economy, manage your military, make alliances, and slowly try to outmaneuver everyone else on a huge persistent map. What helps Supremacy 1914 stand out is the scale. Depending on the map, you can have a massive number of players involved, and that gives the game a real sense of global tension. You are not just thinking about your own borders, you are thinking about who is expanding, who is bluffing, who is vulnerable, and who might turn on you later. It also has that classic long-form browser strategy feel, where progress matters because wars can last a long time. You are making moves that may not pay off for days, and that gives the whole experience a very different kind of pressure compared to faster RTS games. So if you like historical strategy, diplomacy, and slower, real-time wars where patience matters just as much as aggression, Supremacy 1914 is still a solid pick. At number 8, we've got Iron Order 1919. This one takes a similar grand strategy structure, but gives it a much more distinct identity with its alternate history dieselpunk setting. Instead of just standard historical warfare, you are dealing with a strange post-World War world filled with mechs, heavy war machines, and a more stylized military atmosphere. That twist helps it stand out right away. You still have the usual long-form strategy elements like province control, diplomacy, army movement, and alliance politics, but the world feels a lot less predictable than a pure historical war game. Another reason Iron Order works is that it balances scale with accessibility pretty well. You can play it casually with regular check-ins, but there is still enough depth there for players who want to get more invested in long campaigns and coalition play. So if you like the idea of massive real-time strategy, but you want something with more personality than a standard historical sim, Iron Order 1919 is a really interesting option. At number 7, we have Supremacy World War III. If the older war settings are not your thing, this is where the formula shifts into the modern era. Instead of cavalry, early artillery, or alternate history machines, you are dealing with contemporary nations, modern military technology, global logistics, and long-distance conflict on a huge scale. What makes this one work is the realism of the pacing. Movement takes time, production takes time, wars unfold slowly, and that gives the game a more serious strategic rhythm. You cannot just spam units and expect instant results. Infrastructure, planning, positioning, and coalition support matter a lot. It also has a strong diplomatic side. Like many of the best MMORTS games, winning is not just about brute force. It is about reading people correctly, making useful deals, and knowing when those deals are about to collapse. That said, it is definitely a commitment-heavy game. This is not something you jump into for 10 minutes and fully understand. But if you like modern warfare, global maps, and long term strategy, where logistics and planning matter, Supremacy, World War III is one of the stronger options out there. At number 6, we have Call of War. This one sits in a really nice spot for players who want a World War II strategy game with large maps, diplomacy, research, and long form conquest, but do not want something too overwhelming right away. What I like about Call of War is that it feels broad without feeling impossible to read. You still get the grand strategy appeal of managing territory, building armies, researching new units, and dealing with other players across a persistent world. But the systems are easier to get into than some of the heavier games in the genre. It also gives you a lot of flexibility in how you approach a round. You can play more aggressively, focus on defense, try to build a stronger economy first, or lean into coalition play and coordination. That variety makes it easier to settle into a style that fits you. So if you want a World War II MMORTS that gives you the satisfaction of long-term planning and player-driven conflict without feeling too punishing at the start, Call of War is a really solid choice. Breaking into the top 5, we have Stronghold Kingdoms. This one feels a bit different from a lot of the other games on the list because while it does have warfare and sieges, a huge part of its appeal comes from politics, power structures, and long-term kingdom management. Instead of just focusing on armies, you are also dealing with houses, regional control, elections, ranks, and feudal relationships. That gives the game a much more political feel than a lot of standard strategy titles where the main answer is just to build more units and attack. What makes Stronghold Kingdoms memorable is that it feels like a living medieval power struggle. You are building castles, managing your economy, taking part in regional conflicts, and slowly climbing through a broader system where diplomacy and influence matter just as much as military strength. It is also one of the more time-friendly games in the genre if you play it more casually. You do not always need non-stop attention to make progress, which gives it a different rhythm than the more intense war-focused titles. So if you want an MMORTS that leans more into medieval politics, castle building, and long-term social strategy, Stronghold Kingdoms absolutely deserves a look. At number 4, we have Starborne, Sovereign Space. This is where the list moves into sci-fi, and it does it in a very strong way. Starborne is a space MMORTS built around large campaign-based wars, alliance play, economic planning, and long-term control of territory across a shared galaxy. What makes Starborne stand out is the campaign structure. Instead of one endless world where everything just keeps going forever, the game runs big strategic rounds that last for weeks, and that gives each campaign a stronger sense of momentum and purpose. It also has more strategic layers than it first appears. You are not just moving fleets around, you are thinking about faction strengths, policy cards, diplomacy, map control, and how your alliance fits into the bigger conflict. There is also a shorter mode called Dead Zone for faster matches, which helps if you like the setting, but do not always want to commit to a huge campaign. So if you want a deeper sci-fi MMORTS with real alliance warfare and a more structured campaign loop, Starborne is one of the more interesting games in the genre. At number 3, we have Call of Dragons. This is one of the strongest modern fantasy MMORTS games. And if you like alliance warfare, territory control, hero progression, and massive seasonal conflicts, it is very easy to see why so many players got pulled into it. What helps Call of Dragons stand out is how active it feels. The battlefield has a much stronger presence than in older strategy games, where so much of the action happens through timers and calculations. Movement and positioning matter more, and large battles feel much more visual and immediate. The fantasy setting also gives it a stronger identity. Instead of just being another empire builder, it brings in heroes, magical armies, raid bosses, faction flavor, and a more dramatic world overall. That helps the game feel bigger and more alive. Now, it is only fair to mention that this game does get pay-to-win criticism, and that is something you should know before jumping in. Big spenders can gain advantages faster, and that is a common complaint. Still, a lot of players stick with it because the alliance gameplay, seasonal resets, and large-scale conflicts are genuinely fun. So, if you want a modern fantasy MMORTS with strong alliance warfare and more active battlefield action, Call of Dragons is one of the best picks you can make. At number 2, we have Rise of Kingdoms, the predecessor to Call of Dragons. If you think of modern MMORTS games, this is one of the first names that comes to mind, and for good reason. Rise of Kingdoms takes the core appeal of the genre, city building, expansion, alliance play, long term progression, real time war, and turns it into one of the most polished and accessible experiences in the space. What makes it so strong is how much more alive the map feels compared to many older strategy games. Battles happen in real time, troop movement is flexible, alliances can reinforce each other on the spot, and the world itself matters because terrain, choke points, passes, and positioning all play a role. It also does a good job of making your kingdom feel bigger than just one city. You pick a civilization, build commanders, scout the map, fight barbarians, join alliance campaigns, and slowly become part of a much larger struggle across the kingdom. And that is really what makes Rise of Kingdoms so popular. It takes the addiction loop that made older MMORTS games so compelling and makes it feel smoother, more active, and more readable for modern players. Of course, it also comes with the same warning a lot of people already know. Yes, it gets plenty of pay to win criticism. Spending can speed things up a lot, and that can be frustrating in competitive play. But that is the case with most MMORTS games. But even with that downside, it is still one of the biggest and most complete MMORTS experiences you can jump into right now. And finally, at number 1, we have Foxhole. Now, this one is a little different from the rest of the list because it blends action and strategy in a way that feels much more hands on. But it still absolutely earns its place because it captures something that a lot of MMORTS games only talk about: true large scale player driven war. Foxhole is not just about commanding units from above, it is about being part of the war itself. Players handle logistics, build defenses, drive vehicles, move supplies, run artillery, fight on the front line, and keep entire battle plans alive through teamwork. That is what makes it so special. In many strategy games, logistics are just a background system. In Foxhole, logistics are the war. If the trucks stop coming, if ammunition does not arrive, if production is not happening, the front collapses. It also avoids the usual free-to-play spending frustrations because it is a premium PC game, rather than one built around constant microtransactions. That alone makes it feel refreshing compared to many MMORTS games. So if you want one of the most immersive and teamwork-heavy large-scale war games around, Foxhole is one of the best games in the entire genre. So yeah, MMORTS games are still very much alive. Which game is the best one for you really depends on what part of the genre you care about most. Do you want huge alliance wars, deep diplomacy, realistic logistics, medieval politics, or a more modern mobile-friendly experience? Let me know in the comments which MMORTS game is your favorite, and if there is one I missed that deserves a spot on the list. And if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more strategy game content.